From the Goldberg-Jones Sports Desk, your 620 Rip City Radio headlines. Goldberg-Jones. Call 1-800-DIVORCE.
All right, 3 o'clock. What's up, my friends? We're going to start with your Trailblazers. 127-113 winners last night in the ATL over the Hawks. 33 points and 10 boards for Sharp. 32 points, 15 rebounds, and 10 assists for Denny Avdia. Second triple-double of his career. After the game, Tamani Kamara shared his thoughts on the win.
I think the way we finished it, we stayed together all 4 quarters. They made some runs and we were able to stay composed. I think it's short growth. There's a lot of situations where we can lay down towards the end of the game, and I feel like we stayed all 4 quarters and stick to the game plan.
Trailblazers going to be in Toronto tomorrow, host the Raptors. Tip-off is at 4:30. They'll be at the Raptors, not hosting them. Blazers Game Day live at 2:30 and streaming on our free iHeartRadio app. From the NFL, the owners have tabled a vote to ban the tush push, and the topic's going to be revisited in May. According to reports, there are 16 teams that would vote right now to get rid of the play. Rip City Drive's coming up next.
The home of the OSAA is 620 Rip City Radio. It's time for the Rip City Drive, brought to you by Lazy Boy. What's your strategy for comfort? Featuring the crazy and often irrational longtime Portland radio vet, Chad Dewing.
I would say it was a good sign that he wanted to do that. And, we keep hearing that, he's, I guess, headed in our direction. And so that seems to be all signs are positive so far.
There's a lot of discussion about going back to the previous rule, back to pre-2004. The reality of it is, I think that's makes a lot of sense in many ways, because I think it expands it beyond just that single play. There are a lot of plays where you see someone pulling or pushing somebody that are not in the tush-push formation that I think do have an increased risk of injury. And so I think the committee will look at that and come back in May with some proposals.
Strap in. The Rip City Drive with Chad Dewing starts now.
I mean, you have to admit, it's kind of pathetic that you've got NFL owners who are petty and jealous because the Philadelphia Eagles are kicking everyone's ass right now. And so they're trying to find a way to get rid of a play that has been perfected by one team. Now, I'm not in favor of getting rid of the tush push. And the best part is they can't come up with the data or manufacture the data to be able to get rid of the tush push. That's why they're tabling it right now, which is weird because this is a league that for like 4 or 5 decades suppressed and altered data that showed a strong relationship between violence in football and head trauma. They managed to cover that up for like 40 years, but they can't come up with fake data to suggest the tush push is dangerous. And at the league, I love the NFL, and it's a powerful force. And I think Roger Goodell is a very smart guy. But the owners, and there are a few of them, they're awful soft for being mega rich. And maybe that's what happens when you have billions. You're used to getting your way, and when teams get over on you, start punching you in the face like the Philadelphia Eagles, you get jealous. Just like the Patriots, right? Look, I'm not a Patriot fan, and, frankly, I hate them. But they dominated the NFL for an extended period of time, mostly because of great coaching and great playing, especially from Tom Brady. But what happens when they start to win? Owners around the league start to whine and complain and accuse them of being cheaters. Now, I do think they cheat, or they cheated, but that's what happens here. And that's what's going on with Philadelphia. It's ridiculous. There's one team in the NFL that uses the tush push to perfection. It's Philadelphia. Here's my point. My point being that if you took a crappy team, like what's a really crappy team? Well, of course, I know that. It's the Browns and the Jets. If you took the Browns and the Jets and they were perfecting the tush push, no one would be talking about getting rid of the play, because those franchises don't win, they don't get over, and they don't win championships. No one would care. But because the Eagles are doing it with ease and they're winning a lot of football games, people are upset. And the best part is, if they chose to get rid of the play, because the Eagles have the personnel with their offensive line and Jalen Hurts, who can squat like 1 billion pounds, it doesn't matter whether you push them or not. They're still going to have success in short yardage situations. This is what's going to happen. They're going to get rid of the tush push, and then the Eagles are going to continue to convert 4th down and inches with the quarterback sneak at a ridiculous rate, and then the owners will try to find a way to get rid of the QB sneak on 4th and 1. because they're jealous and they're very petty. And so I don't like this whole situation. But that's what they're doing. It feels like, to me, that they didn't have the support to get rid of the play now. So what they're going to do is table it. They'll revisit it in May. And between now and then, they're going to try to come up with whatever date is necessary to get rid of the play. That's what it feels like to me. And whatever. So that's where I stand on that. The NFL is great, and I love the product, and I love watching the games, and it's an amazing made-for-television product. And Roger Goodell does a great job of taking bullets for the owners. That's what he does. A phenomenal product, and a great sports league that just prints their own money. But these are the type of things that drive me crazy. And it looks like we may get rid of the chain gang. They may start using technology. I'm telling you, for a league that dominates and prints their own money, they still do a few things that drive me insane. The chain gang. You're trying to tell me that with all the technology that we have, and you look at tennis with the Hawkeye situation, they can't figure out a way to get technology into the game so we don't have a couple of old dudes rolling out those chains with those ridiculous sticks to figure out whether or not something's a first down? That seems a little bit archaic to me. And then there's got to be a better way to figure out or not whether the football goes through a couple of uprights. Right now, their solution is to have two guys standing below the crossbar, and they both have cataracts, and then they get to look up and try to tell me if a ball went through the uprights or not. There's got to be a better system than that. So I'm in favor of technology to a certain degree. So get rid of the chain gang and stop trying to penalize teams that are dominant with one particular play and getting rid of the play. I don't see what the problem is. One team does it. Other owners are jealous, and so they're going to find a way to get rid of it. That's probably how that's going to go down. What's going on? Rip City Drive, Chad doing here. We got a very busy program today. The Hillsboro Hops are going to open up their season on Friday out in Hillsboro. Cale Wombacher, their general manager, is going to join us at 5 o'clock. We'll get the latest on the new stadium construction. They've got something going on this weekend that's really cool for all fans who attend. Your chance to etch your name in history. You'll find out more about that. Also, the Hops are going to have a terrific roster that's been fed from the Arizona Diamondbacks. So we'll get into that with KL coming up at 5. And at 5:20, Celeste Tripp's going to join me in studio for What Women Want. And we're going to talk about hair loss and ways that dudes can improve their lettuce. They're making serious improvements. So we're going to talk about lettuce coming up at 5:20. Here in about 15 minutes, I'm going to be joined by Keith Smith, who is an NBA genius. I want to get his take on the Celtics, the potential matchup in the finals with the Celtics and Thunder, which I think would be fascinating. What about Nikola Jokic last night? He is a freak. Yeah, I'm just going to go with a 60-point triple-double. And my team's still going to lose by a point in double overtime. Nikola Jokic is awesome. And I've said this before, I'll say it again. I was slow to come around on Jokic, mostly because I sided with Nurk way back in the day when he was traded to Portland. But what I found is the Nuggets knew what they were doing. They got rid of a crybaby in favor of one of the best basketball players of all time. And Jokic reminds me of so many of the former greats. He plays at his pace. No one can stop him, and he's just a dominant force. He can score. He can handle the rock in the pick and roll like a guard. He can shoot the three. He can bang down low like a traditional center. And he's got vision. He's got the eyes in the back of his head. It's like, are you an owl? Can he, like, spin his dome around 360 and just be able to see everything at the same time? He's awesome. Nikola Jokic is awesome. And he's not going to win the MVP, but yet he's the MVP. And this is why I hate the MVP voting. They get tired of voting for one guy who's clearly the best, and so they give it to somebody else who's close but not the MVP because they get tired of voting for the same guy. They actually had 2 years where Charles Barkley and Karl Malone got the MVP over Jordan. I watched basketball then, and I can tell you with certainty that MJ was the MVP for 6 or 8 straight years that he played in the NBA. But they get tired of giving it to the same guy, so it's probably going to be Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who, by the way, I heard a stat last night. Shai Gilgeous, this is how good this guy is and how dumb the Clippers are. No matter who owns the team, they still make ridiculous decisions. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has 78 straight games of 20 or more points. Is that good? I don't know. I'm not a stat guy. I'm not an analytics nerd. Is that good? 78 straight games of 20 or more? That's called Mr. Consistency right there. And the weird part is I'm looking around the West, and I'm excited about the Lakers having Luka. and the Warriors getting Jimmy Butler because I think it's going to provide intrigue in the postseason. But really, is any team going to beat Oklahoma City? Denver can't defend. The Lakers can't defend. They've got issues. And the Warriors, well, Steph Curry's amazing. What did he do last night? It's almost like Jimmy Butler coming over, like rejuvenated Steph Curry to where he's like, hey, I've got something more to play for now. 50 points. How many threes he hit? I lost count. 12, 13, 20. Steph Curry's a freak too, by the way. Whatever happened to the idea that his ankles weren't going to hold up and he wouldn't be able to survive the physicality of the NBA? Steph Curry is awesome. And as I've said before, it pains me to say this because I love Larry Bird. That's my number one. But Steph Curry is the best shooter of all time. So if I had to rank the best shooters ever, Steph 1, Larry Bird 2. But Steph Curry is tremendous. And he was on fire last night. On fire. So there we have it. But that provides intrigue. Can the Warriors do it? I just think Oklahoma City's better than everyone. Why are we so slow to just commit to Oklahoma City getting to the finals? They're one of the best defensive teams and offensive teams in the NBA. They're incredibly deep, and their roster's so versatile. Like, this is why I like the matchup, and we'll get into this with Keith. But the Thunder are the one team that can switch at all 5 positions and be able to keep up with the Celtics and the way that they move the basketball and get their open shooters from downtown. That might be a good matchup. But it's going to be fun to watch and see how the West plays out. The only reason why we are hesitant on Oklahoma City is because they haven't done it before. And I think there's validity to that because growing up, there's a certain, it's like a refining fire. You have to do it in the postseason and take your lumps before you get over the hump and start winning a championship. Once you get your first title, then you understand what it takes, you know what you need to do, and maybe it becomes in some ways a little bit easier, although the pressure continues to climb the more you win. So that's pretty exciting. So there you have it. That's what's going on today. Brenden Slaughter is here. If you want to reach out to me, you can do so. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. I may or may not have Trailblazer tickets to give away, so we're going to do that as well. Trailblazer ticket Wednesday, which should be Tuesday, but I don't think we gave them away yesterday.
We did, boss.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We were on it. Chris and I gave him away during game day. Sorry we didn't communicate that.
No, that's okay. You and the rest of the crew communicating with me would be a first. So I appreciate that. So I'm sorry I teased you, but there are no tickets because Chris gave them away yesterday. So that's what we got going on. So the Blazers got a big win last night. How great is Denny Avdia? 32 points, 15 rebounds, and 10 assists. And he's on a contract right now that's paying him $15.6 million this year. And next year it's going to drop to where he's going to make like 14.3. He is the best bargain in the NBA. And in a league where the players that you have and the contracts they're on are so important, Denny Avdia is a tremendous player, worth so much more than what he's making right now. I knew he was going to be good, but he's exceeding my expectations. And I really liked him when they acquired him from the Wizards during the summertime. He was great. And how about Shaedon Sharpe? 33 points and 10 rebounds. The last time the Trailblazers had 2 players on the same night have a 30-point double-double was back January 31st of 2020. It was Hassan Whiteside and Damian Lillard. So it was a great game. They got the win, and they really played well in that second half. But Denny Avdia is great. He is the consummate pro. He shows up ready to go. He's incredibly aggressive, and he can do all things. He can run the floor. He can defend. He can defend multiple positions. He's got good vision. He sets up his teammates. He's kind of the straw that stirs the drink for the Trailblazers. Just look at the difference from when he's in and when he's not in the lineup. And then with Shaedon Sharpe's growth. Remember a few weeks ago when he was benched for his lackluster defensive effort? He's responded. He's doing a better job with his assignments. He's showing more effort on the defensive end, not dying in screens. And offensively, he continues to impress. The best part is over the last few weeks, he's being aggressive. My favorite stat line from a couple of weeks ago, he was 1 of 10 from downtown. And that's good because shooting guards, I know this is weird, it's implied in the name of their position. They're supposed to shoot the basketball. Don't be passive, Shaedon. You got too much skill for that. Be aggressive. So the biggest takeaway is the number one thing that they needed to accomplish this year has been accomplished, which is player development. And that goes with all the young guys. Klingon's had flashes, Scoot, Shaedon, Denny, and Tamani. But I officially love Denny Avdia. He is awesome. And he's the type of guy you want on your team because he's the voice of the locker room. He brings atmosphere to the practices, and he plays his ass off. And the more responsibility he's gotten from Coach Phillips, the better he's gotten. All right, Rip City Drive. Coming up next, we're going to talk NBA with Keith Smith. Kale Wombacher, general manager for the Hops, at 5. Celeste will be in studio at 5:20, and a couple of special guests in studio at 4. Talking West Coast League. You got the Rip City Drive with Chad doing. All right, our next guest is a young Jedi Knight in the world of covering the NBA. He's with Spotrac and the Front Office Show, and he's on X at Keith Smith NBA. Keith Smith is back on the Rip City Drive. Hey, Keith, I appreciate the time. Nikola Jokic with the third 60-point triple-double in NBA history. In last night's thrilling double overtime loss to the Wolves. What was your reaction to that performance?
Yeah, I mean, I'm running out of things to say about him. He's just unbelievable. I could have woke up this morning. You could have told me he had 70, and I'd be like, okay, sure, I guess. Where do we go? I mean, he just really is. Putting up these numbers, whether they be in-season numbers, single-game numbers, his career numbers. All this stuff is leading to we're watching a guy who, when all is said and done, he's probably going to finish as a top 10 all-time player, and it might be one of the more unexpected top 10 all-time players. Because I don't know when he came in as this doughy second rounder that anybody ever really expected anything like this from him.
Yeah. You know what's amazing, Keith? Larry Bird is my favorite player of all time, and I always appreciated the way Bird, he could score with the best of them, but he could also impact a game without even taking a shot. And when I watch Jokic, I get that same feeling where if he needs to score, it's yeah, I can do that. If I need to impact the game with my rebounds or my anticipatory passing, I can do that. I've just grown to really appreciate his game.
Yeah, I think with Jokic, you almost watch him sometimes. I think he'd rather not shoot. I think he would much rather just set guys up and kind of do his thing that way. And then because it's almost times when he shoots and it's all right, I guess I'll take this. And some of these shots that he takes too, much like Bird, it's how does he get it off? He doesn't jump. You start to wonder, how does this work? And then, next thing you know, it's going down, you're going down the other end because it went through the net again. Yeah, he is really, really something special.
No doubt about it. Do you have an MVP vote, Keith? And the reason why I ask is, how do you size up the race between Jokic and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander?
I don't have a ballot this year, but for me, I've been kind of, this is, excuse me, offense riding if you want, but I'm either one of those two guys, and I don't think it's particularly close for anybody else. I would probably have Giannis or Tatum third on my ballot, and they're miles and miles away, and I don't really have a huge issue with anybody. Anybody who says, hey, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is having a heck of an individual statistical season, and his team is 16 and a half games ahead of Nikola Jokic, there's my decision point. I don't have an issue with that. I also don't have an issue with people hey, Jokic is doing stuff we've never seen before, so I'm going to go with him, and he doesn't have as much help and those kind of things. I wouldn't have an issue with that. The only place I take issue in the MVP voting, and unfortunately we're already hearing some of this from folks with votes, is things if we give Jokic another MVP, then we have to start having a conversation about, he's up there with Bird and Magic and MJ and LeBron and Chamberlain and Russell in terms of total MVPs, and I don't know if we're ready for that and all that. And for one, why aren't we ready? Let's start having the conversation. We can appreciate greatness in the moment. There's no reason why we can't. And then the second part would be that should have no bearing on who you think the best player was in the 24-25 season. If you think it's Jokic, you should give it to him regardless of where the historical context takes it.
Boy, I agree. I really appreciate that answer. Keith Smith is here on the Rip City Drive. All right, Steph Curry, 52 points, 10 rebounds, 8 assists, hit 12 threes, and the Dubs win over the Grizzlies. It sure feels like the addition of Jimmy Butler has provided a boost to Curry.
Yeah, it really has. I think what's happened with the Warriors getting Butler is you have the on-court impact of it's just another really smart player who's a good ball mover, good screener. You lost nothing defensively when you added him. You probably even gained on that end of the floor. And it's just one other guy who just knows kind of how to play off a guy like Stephen Curry. Everything's going to still orbit around Steph, but when you get these other guys who know how to pass and cut and move away from the ball, it's just absolutely incredible. And then I think off-court, what it did for that Warriors team was this gave all the rest of the guys, hey, ownership believes in us. They believe we have a run in us. They're willing to go get this guy. They're willing to extend him and go, back into big money on the roster and all that. And I think that's given the entire team a lift. And they're dangerous come playoff time. I don't know that I would pick them to beat the Thunder because I don't think I'd pick anybody in the West to beat the Thunder. But I do think, it would not be a surprise if the Warriors made a run to the Western Conference Finals because Steph's playing that well and they're playing that well as a team.
Why are we so hesitant to just say, hey, Oklahoma City is going to run through the West and get to the finals? They're top 10 in defense and offense. They're incredibly deep, and they've got a versatile roster that can switch at every position. Why are we hesitant? Is it because they haven't done it before? Or what's going on there?
Yeah, I think that's the big part of it is they haven't done it before. More so than almost any other league, the NBA is you need to show it to me. And if you don't show it to me, I'm not going to believe it. And, I think because we put so much in the NBA on playoff success, is how we evaluate players and teams, it really becomes, all right, you had a great regular season last year, and you lost in the second round. So no one's going to really believe it until they actually make that run. And I think the other part of it is, at this point in the year, nobody wants to kind of be like, well, let's just concede the West to the Thunder because that's a little boring, right?
Yeah.
Then it's like, why even watch? And so I think people are going to find a lot of other reasons to pick other teams when in the end we should probably just pick OKC.
Hey, I wanted to tell you, I know you're close to the Celtics situation. They were in Portland just a couple of weeks ago. I got to tell you what, I think they're fun to watch. I know some people would disagree, but I love their execution. And what amazes me is how Coach Mazzulla's gotten the guys to buy in where they continue to move the basketball, and you've got star players willing to pass up a good shot for the best shot. And I think that's the right way to play.
I'm completely with you. I have gotten very, fond of saying, like, if you're out here screaming that the Celtics are boring to watch, you're just not watching. Like, yeah, I get it. If you'd rather see somebody dribble into a contested 15-foot jump shot, well, I can't argue with you then. Like, if that's what you enjoy, then that's, what you enjoy. I mean, there's, all kinds of, things people enjoy that I don't like and I don't understand, but that would be the basketball equivalent. And I think, with the Celtics, if you really sit down and watch, very few of their three-pointers are generated out of isolation. They've pretty much gotten that out of the game. And when they do go to those isolation sets, it's usually Tatum or Brown, and those are more set up for, hey, go find something. Not necessarily your own shot. Like, go drive, find a pass. And they do play a lot of inside out because they love to get downhill and throw lobs to Porzingis and Cornet. And I think Al Horford would appreciate a few less lobs thrown to him at this point in his career, but they'll toss them up to him every once in a while too. And then the three-pointers, they get so many open three-pointers because of the ball and player movement. I think they're a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, and Jason Tatum, you mentioned the isolation plays. Like, what I like about Tatum, number one, he plays in almost every game. Two, I think he's elevated himself where he's kind of the key guy, where a couple of years ago was he and Brown. But I was watching Tatum in Portland where in a play where he's got to go ISO, he works so hard and is so physical to get to the spot that he needs to be able to score. I really respect the way he balls.
Yeah, the question on him a couple of years ago when they played the Warriors in the finals is, if the jump shot's not falling, can he find other ways to impact the game? And he had started really in the last couple of years finding ways to, all right, he's going to find passes. And know that he's become a very, very good passer. He's now pretty much on triple-double watch just about every game. He's been a great defensive player since day one in the league, and he defends anybody they ask him to. He'll defend centers, he'll defend guards. He does a great job on opposing forwards. And then the scoring, what I love now is he is like, oh, you're going to put a small guy on me? I'm going to bully him. I'm going to take him right inside, and if I see you bringing help, I'll just shoot the short little turnaround or the little pull-up or whatever it is. Yeah, he's really rounded out his game in a great way.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Don't you think Oklahoma City and Boston would be a fascinating finals from the standpoint that Oklahoma City's got the one team with the roster? They can switch all five positions. They've got versatile players. Like, I would love to see them and their defensive capabilities trying to match up and deal with Boston's elite shooting.
Yeah, that's one I think would really be a lot of fun for everybody. I mean, I realize Celtics and Thunder fans are like, yes, please, and a lot of the rest of the league is probably like, oh God, no, like not the Celtics again. But I think it would be a really fun matchup. I think there's a lot of defensive things both teams would try. I think that'd be a long series where you'd see, all right, this worked in game one, so we switched this up and we changed this. And that worked, and now they've countered it with this. And I think we get a lot of fun back and forth between the coaches. And I think both of those teams, we know with the Celtics, they've kind of now at this point figured out, all right, this is what we need to do to win in the playoffs. I think if the Thunder get to the finals, we'll obviously say, all right, they've kind of solved that as well. And I think that's going to be the next thing for the Thunder is on the nights when teams are really kind of collapsing on SGA and they're making things really hard on him. where do you go? Who's going to step up? Who's going to be the other guy? Not just to hit a shot or score himself, but that creates the next look when Shai Gilgeous-Alexander gets trapped. Who's going to go get the ball and then go create another look? And if they can figure that out, they're going to be really tough.
We're talking with Keith Smith. Have you been able to find out the purpose behind the Grizzlies' decision to let go of Taylor Jenkins this late in the season?
Yeah, it all seems to come down to they were going to do it anyway, and they decided, all right, barring a incredible playoff run where we get to the finals or something like that, we're moving on. We're making a change, and I think when they had played so poorly recently, they've really had a rough go of it since the All-Star break. I think they basically said, yes, it's time. There's really no true downside to this. We're not going anywhere anyway. Maybe we'll get a little bit of a spark out of, the interim coach, and maybe the guys will be a little bit more ready to go, and that's why they moved on. Very strange, for it to happen this late in the year, but I think one of the biggest mistakes NBA teams make with both players and coaches is when this isn't working and this is not going to go the way we want, is holding on and saying, well, maybe another week will make it better. And I'm not saying you're going to make moves in the beginning of, November when we're a couple weeks into the season, but we're this deep in. I think they knew, hey, this isn't going to change anything. We're not going anywhere anyway, so let's get rid of them, and maybe at best this will spark us to make a little bit of a run.
Hey, Keith, what does your eye tell you about Cooper Flagg?
I love him. I mean, I think he's going to be an unbelievable NBA player. I got a chance to see him play a lot in high school at Montverde Academy, right down the road from me here in Central Florida. He's going to be really good. I think what people are occasionally forgetting, and I love to throw out there as a reminder, is he should be a senior in high school right now, and he's doing this on the NCAA level. And the thing I'd really like to see with him, both in the conference tournament and the NCAA tournament, there's a moment in every game so far where he's kind of looked and said, all right, we're in it. We're in a fight now. I'm not letting us lose. And then we talked a little bit earlier about doing whatever it takes, and that's what he does. All right, you need a defensive play made, great, I'll do that. You need some passing. You need somebody to get inside and score. You need a couple jumpers. I mean, he's, terrific. It's, again, much like we talked about, like, people get bored with the Thunder. People are going to get bored with the draft process. They're going to start talking about other guys like, maybe this guy should be the number one pick, or maybe if this team lands the number one, they should go this way. I would highly encourage anybody running an NBA team, don't overthink it. Don't pass on Cooper Flagg. That's just going to get you fired eventually.
Hey, Keith, before you go, I wanted to ask, the Blazers have seen a dramatic uptick with their young talent. Tamani Kamara, Denny Avdia, Scoot and Shaden have shown flashes, and, Donovan Clingan's having a solid rookie year. Of the young guys, is there anyone that's kind of caught your eye in terms of what they've been able to do this year?
Yeah, I really like Scoot Henderson's development this year. I think you're seeing a much more confident player. I think you're seeing now he's using his athleticism in ways where it is, when I break down a defense, this is what I'm going to see. Next step will be shooting it more consistently, and that, sometimes it comes for younger guards. Sometimes it takes 5-6 years. Sometimes it never comes. That'll be the difference between does he actually make it or not. I think Shaden Sharp's had a really nice year, staying mostly healthy. This season, I think, has been really big for him. I think Donovan Clingan's ability to defend and kind of be an anchor big is there. And again, big guys, sometimes you're 4 or 5 before it all kind of clicks for them as far as being scorers. And I think as the Blazers' passing improves around him, you'll see him get easier baskets in and around the rim. And that'll be huge. And then I love Tamani Kamara and Denny Avdia's growth this year. Not just the scoring and the defense you knew was going to be there with those guys, but the toughness they've shown defensively and on the board has been absolutely phenomenal.
That's awesome. Oh, one side note, I heard a stat last night, and you're probably aware, but I was like, wait, what? So Shai Gilgeous-Alexander scored 20 or more in 78 straight games. Like, I don't know if that's good, but it sounds like that might be good.
yeah, I'll take it. That seems pretty good to me. Yeah, and that's another guy, too. Pretty much plays almost every game.
Yeah.
But, when he doesn't play now, it's because they don't let him. And you hear the same things about him as you hear about, like, Jason Tatum, where it's like, yeah, we had to, like, take the jersey out of the locker and, like, hide it from them because they're like, no, I'm suiting up. I don't sit games out. That's becoming, I think, at this point, one of the more underrated things about players, and I think that's something where we need to start tweaking those evaluations of. All the other stuff is great, but, if you can only give it to me 40 times a year, Give me the guy whose production might be slightly less, if it even is, who I know is going to be out there 75 times a year.
It's Keith Smith from the Front Office Show and Spotrac. Well, Keith, man, enjoy the rest of the regular season. The great thing is, like we saw it last night with Denver and Minnesota, a lot of these games now are starting to get a playoff-type feel, so it's going to be fun to watch these teams jockey for position down the stretch.
Yeah, I'm super excited. We got a lot of really great games coming, and yeah, we're only a week and a half till the real good stuff starts.
All right, buddy. Hey, keep up the good work, man. Appreciate the time.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
There you go. Keith Smith. Love talking ball with him. Yeah. Yeah, the NBA playoff race right now, there are some very intriguing stories. Nikola Jokic is a freak. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is a freak. And Steph Curry's a freak. Freak, freak, freak. All of them. And it's nice to hear people outside of the Portland area saying good things about the Trailblazers. And I would say that of all the stories, and I've asked a lot of people this, like there's no doubt that Denny and Tamani are dope, right? I mean, those guys are legit. Donovan Clingan has been nice. The emergence of Shaedon Sharpe being healthy and being able to ball and being more aggressive is great. But I think the biggest story has got to be Scoot. Because at the end of last year, we're all like, I don't know what they have in Scoot. Not an encouraging first year. Let's just put it that way based on where he was picked. But because he's young and because he's got a very good work ethic, we're starting to see things come together where he's making shots and he's taking advantage of guys who charge him now where he can put the ball on the floor and attack. And because the game's slowing down, he's making better decisions. And he's got for a young man, I'm jealous of his physique. He is stacked with muscle, very athletic, very strong. But the biggest thing I get from people around the team is they're noticing the work he's putting in defensively. So, yeah, it's pretty good. Now we just need an act of God for the Blazers to get the number one pick. I hate talking about these type of fantasies.
It's a pretty good one, though, Chad.
It is a good fantasy. It's like when I think about Cher and just one night. It's not going to happen, although I really would like to see what would take place if it did happen. But the idea of winning the lottery and then adding Cooper Flagg into Denny, Tamani, Clingan, Scoot, and Shaedon. And if your biggest problem is, well, who do we pull out of the starting lineup to start Cooper Flagg? That's a good problem to have, and that's a discussion I would love to have. It doesn't matter. Cooper Flagg will start, and you just put whoever you want on the bench. But that would be great, wouldn't it? And I think the Hawks had the 10th best odds last year, and they got the number one pick. So the Blazers are going to be sitting there at 8th or 9th. For all the clowns who believe in karma, which I don't, I think it's nonsense, but I might start to believe in karma if I knew it could manufacture the number one pick in the draft. Because a lot of people are like, and I've gotten this a ton of times, well, Chad, the Blazers have respected the game and they've continued to compete and try to win games down the stretch. Maybe karma will award them the number one pick instead of being a tank team. Well, whatever. Yeah, but I want the number one pick. I would love to add Cooper Flagg into the mix. But the biggest thing is, even if you can't get the number one pick, jumping up into the top 4 would be huge because you'd have a chance to add an alpha to the already good group of youngsters. All right, we'll keep things rolling here on the Rip City Drive. Kale Wombacher, general manager for the Hops, coming up at 5. All right, very sad to hear about the news of Val Kilmer, who passed away today. And I think it was from complications with pneumonia. I think he had a battle with throat cancer several years ago and had a weakened immune system. But Val Kilmer was a sensational actor, and, man, he was in some real bangers, too. And I guess if you put a gun to my dome and said, what is your favorite character from Val Kilmer, I would probably lean Doc Holliday from Tombstone. That's probably the one I would choose because that's an incredible character, but obviously Iceman in the Top Gun movies, I thought it was great that Cruise had him in Maverick, but he's one of those guys. And the one thing I hate about getting older is that the people you grow up with and admire, whether they be athletes or actors or musicians or whatever, they start passing away. And now I'm looking at my friends, and they're getting older, and I'm getting older, and it's that process in life. But Val Kilmer was a stud. He was a stud. And I think, didn't Cher? Yeah, I think, was it him? I think Cher may have had a fling or a thing with Val Kilmer. I think she said she was madly in love with him. And Rachel reached out to me to let me know that I am the perfect age for Cher. That could be true based on her current boyfriend, but I don't know if I would survive. Like, I might die an early age if I spent an evening with Cher. Maybe. It's possible. I would do my best to survive, but I don't know if I would. And that actually might be a good way to go, too. You could put that on my tombstone. All right, so Val Kilmer, stud. What is your favorite role? Is it Doc Holliday? Is it Iceman? Is there another movie? He was in that movie with, I can't think of the name of the movie now. Gosh dang it. What is the gal's name from Karate Kid? I can't remember anything right now, but that was a good movie, too. What is that movie? Gosh darn it. Okay, Elizabeth Shue. Let's see here. Elizabeth Shue and Val Kilmer. Kind of a good, spy movie. Why can't I think of the name of it? I'm going to pull it up right here. Elizabeth Shue and Val Kilmer movie. The Saint. That was back in 1997. That was a terrific film. So I like The Saint. Obviously, the Top Gun movies are fabulous.
Yeah, he's got to give him with Iceman. Chad, when I saw that last night, I was, obviously pretty disappointed to see, 65 is pretty young to go. But I, read something that, the last pretty much since the, life had been tough for him for a couple years. But, since we last saw him in Top Gun Maverick, he had started to have to, it was like he couldn't do both eat and breathe at the same time. So just life was becoming more and more difficult. And, to your point, it just, no one wants to see that with anybody, whether it's friends, family, people we admire. Like, seeing someone's body betray them is one of the sadder things out there.
Yeah, it's awful. Have you seen Tombstone?
Yes.
Are you lying to me, or have you actually seen it?
No, I've seen Tombstone and Wyatt Earp. Yeah, I've seen them both. Maybe like one time.
Because you are younger, so 93. What year were you born?
96.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean,
I
for sure.
I will. That you've seen the movie.
Oh, yeah, no, definitely. I know he's not looked at as the most popular Batman. I kind of like the role when he was Batman Forever in that film. So
he was great as Batman.
Everyone's got to take on a Batman, Chad.
I know,
everybody's got to take on a Batman.
Here's the problem, though. These comic book superhero, they're like Star Trek and Star Wars fans. They're
right.
They're rabid and crazy. How about this? I liked every Batman.
There you go, right?
And I've liked every Superman. I just don't, again, I don't think too much about movies when I watch them. It's one of the advantages I have with being a simple-minded human being. I don't overthink things. And the same thing with music. I know some people are real big on lyrics and the message of a song or whatever. Most of the time, I don't even know what they're saying. I just like the way it sounds. Seriously. And then someone will say, no, they're saying this. I'm like, are you sure? And then I pull up the lyrics. I'm like, oh, that is what they're talking about there. Yeah, so there you have it. Val Kilmer, stud, has passed away. Yeah, cancer. Cancer can kiss my ass. Oh, by the way, my mom turned 77 today. Happy birthday, Mom. I love you with all my heart. And that's right. My mom is 77 today, so I'm going to have dinner with her and my father after the show tonight, so looking forward to celebrating that. But I would say that
Very nice. Anything fancy on the menu, Chad?
no.
Okay, got
No, the menu is going to be selected by my son Isaac, who has particular tastes. So
Got you.
wherever he chooses is where we're going to go. And I said, Mom, I understand you're trying to be nice to Isaac, but it is your birthday. It's okay for you to choose where you want to go. Well, I know, but I just want him to be happy.
That's awesome mom stuff right there, man.
It is. But yeah, I hit the jackpot on moms. As you know, I'm adopted, so I didn't get to choose. Well, I guess you don't get to choose your parents regardless. But yeah, I hit the jackpot. My mom is awesome. And she is a loving lady, but 77. And, her body is, like a lot of people at 77 has gone through the battles. But, it's nice that she's still able to move. And her and my dad can go out and enjoy life together, which is really cool. But yeah, 77. That's getting up there in the age range there, 77. But I'm with what Brenden was talking about. Length of life is not as important to me as quality of life. So if I live to be 65, I've always figured I'll probably hit about 70 to 75 and die. But if I have quality of life during that period of time, that's what matters to me. Freedom of movement is what I care most about. When I was younger, obviously I've had the same workout partner for 33 years, which is pretty sweet. When I was younger, I was more vain and cared about what I looked like. I still care about what I look like to a degree, but what I care most about is just having movement. So I can do the things I want to do, whether it's go up a flight of stairs, play golf, ridiculous amounts of golf, or being able to go on a walk or a hike or whatever the case may be. Or if you decide to hit the park and go put up some J's, little pick-up basketball. I just like movement. I think that's important. So there you have it. All right, we'll keep things rolling. Kale Wombacher is going to join the show at 5, and then Celeste Tripp is going to be in studio at 5:20. Brad Barbrick has just chimed in. Val Kilmer is Jim Morrison. Great movie. Happy birthday to your mom. Thank you, Coach. I appreciate that. He kind of looks like Jim Morrison, too. It's amazing how they can do that in movies where they can take someone and make them look like that person. I thought, was it Joaquin Phoenix? I thought he did a good job as Johnny Cash, too. That was a
Great
terrific film. All right, we'll keep things rolling. I appreciate your time. We're going to talk some West Coast League coming up next, and then Kale Wombacher at 5.
From the Goldberg Jones Sports Desk, your 620 Rip City Radio headlines. Goldberg Jones. Call 1-800-DIVORCE.
All right, what's going on, my friends? It's now 4 o'clock. We'll start with your Portland Trailblazers, who got a win last night in Atlanta over the Hawks, 127-113. 33 points and 10 rebounds for Shaedon Sharpe, 32 points, 15 boards, and 10 assists for Denny Avdia. That was the second triple-double of his career, and after the game, Tamani Kamara talked about the win.
I think the way we finished it, we stayed together all 4 quarters. They made some runs and we were able to stay composed. I think it's short growth. There's a lot of situations where we can lay down towards the end of the game, and I feel like we stayed all 4 quarters and stick to the game plan.
All right, Trailblazers are going to be in Toronto tomorrow to take on the Raptors. That tip at 4:30. Blazers game day will kick off at 2:30 here on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio, and streaming live and free on our iHeartRadio app. The NFL owners have tabled the vote to ban the tush push, and the topic will be revisited here in a couple of months. According to reports, there are 16 teams now that would vote to get rid of the play. Got more of the Rip City Drive. What's Chad doing coming at you right now?
The home of the OSAA is 620 Rip City Radio.
All right, Rip City Drive. Very happy to welcome in studio a gentleman that I just met and one guy who is a great friend. I'm talking about Gus Farah and Dan Segel. Gus is the executive vice president of the Ridgefield Raptors, and Dan Segel, president and CEO of Knights Baseball. Guys, welcome to the studio. What's up?
Thanks, Chad. Always good to see you, man.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Chad.
All right, good. Thanks for coming in. It's good to see you, Gus.
I know.
You and I have known each other for a long time, going back to the Rose City radio days.
I started in '96 in radio. Yeah, and it was a great run.
How many years did you work in radio in the Portland area?
About 17 years.
That's awesome.
CBS Radio, Alpha, and then I went over to the Trailblazers for about 8 years.
You know what I appreciate so much now that I'm older and having been in the business for a while? It's the relationships, right? The people that you meet, that you come across. And you and I met many years ago, and yet we still maintain a friendship and relationship up to this day. I like that. And I also like the fact that you will check in occasionally just to see how I'm doing. And I respect that.
Well, I think we take a handful of our friends with us after we leave somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, I walked in here today and obviously see you and excited, but I also got to see my friend Susan Reynolds.
Yeah.
You know, we worked together for a lot of years and grew up together. So
it was cool. She came in the studio a couple of hours ago, and she goes, "So Gus is coming in today." And I said, "Yep." And we both agreed that you were good people. So
well, thanks.
How many years did you work for the Trailblazers?
8 years. Yeah, I loved it.
And what'd you do for the team?
Sales manager in the sponsorship department.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved it. It was a good time for my family. You know, I had a young boy, Luke, who is now 24, but at the time he was, about 8. And we got to go to a lot of events, and he got to enjoy it with his friends. And it just got a little stale for me.
Yeah.
It became a little corporate in my view, but overall, I loved it there.
How do you like the transition getting into the baseball game and working with the Raptors? Has that been fun?
It is. It's a lot of work. It's small business. So I do a lot of things. All those things I've done for 30 years have been necessary now to be able to help run this baseball team. I got 2 of them. We have one in Longview as well, the Cowlitz Black Bears. So it requires all those skills. It's just you don't have a lot of support.
Yeah.
But I guess nobody has a lot of support these days.
Yes.
You got to do it yourself. So. And I'm 60 years old, so it feels different than when I was 35 for sure.
That's great. Now, Dan came in bearing gifts today. He brought a package of Big League Chew, and I knew without even asking the question where it came from, Mr. Rob Nelson, who's one of the founders of Big League Chew, and I love the story on that. But, Dan, welcome to the studio. So give us some background. What's your story?
Well, I'm 60 as well, and Gus and I are buddies from the neighborhood, Northeast Portland, and, Rob Nelson is a Northeast Portland guy too, so...
Yeah.
I lucked into this baseball world a long time ago, but one of the originals for the West Coast League, which was established in 2005, and then, I've known Gus forever through Little League baseball, and in fact, we coached against each other, and Gus is a self-proclaimed pitching guru.
Well, and my kid hurt Dan's kid's feeling with a couple home runs. So.
Yes, yeah. No, we had some good battles, but when Gus came on with Cowlitz and Ridgefield, that was pretty exciting to work with him as a league member. But we're actually partnered on a few different things. The Northwest Baseball Coaches Association convention.
Yeah.
That we hold annually in Portland, where it's a gathering of primarily high school coaches and college coaches and youth coaches as well. So,
how many years is the convention going on now? I've been a part of it. You've been kind enough to ask me to come and MC several of the events, and I guess what impresses me is how many high-level coaches, whether it be professional, high school, college, or little league coaches that come in and are willing to share kind of some of their secrets and what works for them in building a program and working with kids. And I'm impressed that they want to come in and share that and be so open. I think it's an awesome event.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been like 25 years that Jerry Gatto, local guy, started it. And he's a Cleveland High School guy, Central Catholic guy, Portland State guy, local guy. And we got to know him because he started a baseball academy called Northwest Star. Mm-hmm. And our kids went through it, or at least some of us did. And Jerry also ran this convention. Jerry got sick, and Jerry ended up passing away. We had talked to Jerry. Dan was instrumental in that, and Jerry wanted to make sure that the program got left to somebody that believed in why are we doing it, which is to keep the love of baseball going for young people at a price that can be afforded. And keep people interested, because baseball is a sport that's starting to turn over a lot of kids, and it's just hard to find new kids. So what we do with this convention is, like Dan said, we have speakers that are college speakers, high school speakers, and pro speakers, and they come in to educate basically high school coaches and youth coaches in the Northwest, Oregon, Idaho, Washington. And we'll get about 300 to 400 people together on a weekend, and they'll just educate them on new drills, on new techniques, on new software, on all these new things that people want to learn to keep improving how they're teaching and coaching these youth.
Hey, Dan, what are some of the big obstacles that you see right now in terms of continuing to grow the game and getting youngsters involved in baseball?
Well, I think cost is probably number one. It's a game of failure. It's it's a hard game, and kids, I think today are maybe have a little shorter attention span.
Yes.
So keeping them in it, you got to engage with them, but also the facilities and coaches, because you get kind of a divide between, say, the suburban programs to the rural or inner city programs. So we put a lot of focus in trying to serve those that might be disadvantaged, So in our case, Gus and I, really focused on the inner city Portland, the core, Columbia Corridor, and the PIL. So we really want to make it as easy as possible to get coached up and then support all these programs. But, the cost of participation. So
one of the big challenges I noticed when I was younger, because I played T-ball and then got into, fast pitch baseball, and I loved it. But when I wanted to practice, it was harder sometimes to get more guys together at the same time to go out and practice. Obviously when you're playing basketball, you just need a ball and a hoop and you're good to go. But there was a little more organization required as a youngster to get guys together to go out and practice some of the basics of the game that we were working on.
Well, and we have, weather is a problem around here too.
Oh, yeah.
So what you've seen is a big, big revolution of trying to find as much turfed fields as possible. And it's not easy, because you can lose half a season with rain in the spring very easily. So you're seeing a lot of investment of trying to get to this turfed field situation so that you have a dependable place to play.
How does the turf work now with Little League Baseball, where if you're playing ball, or it could be high school as well, will they play if there's a little bit of rain because you got the turf field, or a little more flexible, or does it still make it tough?
We had a rule at Wilshire Riverside Little League is where Dan and I coached, and it was if you needed more than 2 bags of turfus, you shouldn't play, right? Can't dump an endless amount of chemicals on the field to play. But it's tough. I mean, you have winter or summers, springs that, it rains every day.
Yeah.
And then you have springs that are beautiful, right? You can't predict that. So, for us out in Ridgefield, we have a beautiful facility, the Ridgefield Outdoor Recreation Complex. And that's really changed a lot of things as to access all year long because of the weather in the Northwest. So,
But if you guys notice that, baseball, because it's such a great game, that when you can help bridge the gap with the cost and being the number one issue, and you get kids out there and they start playing, even though it is a sport of failure and there's some difficulties, once they get involved, do you notice that their eyes do light up and they start to appreciate it the way that we do?
Oh, yeah, it's a great game. It's a lot of fun. You just got to get them out there and active. And, at the end of the day, it's creating those friendships and the camaraderie that goes along with baseball, because there's a lot of time, to get to know each other and goof around a little bit. But there's so many incredible inherent benefits from the game.
it's a great community game.
Yeah, great community
I
game.
mean, when Dan and I were coaching against each other, but we also traveled with our kids on teams that traveled a little bit. And those were times that we just really all got to know each other very deeply. But, nowadays you're dealing with the parents more than you're dealing with the kids sometimes, and that's disappointing. The cost of the game has also risen the expectation that the parents have about what their kids are getting out of it for the cost. And at the end of the day, if you can hit, you can hit. And if you can throw, you can throw. No matter how much money you put against it, you're really not going to go from not being able to play to playing really well. You might get a little bit better, but, a lot of that now is the parents that, want to make it difficult for the kids emotionally.
Yeah. What do you notice from parents? What's their biggest objection when they don't believe that their kid is getting the value out of the sport based on the cost? Is it playing time? Is it not getting the opportunity? What do they see? What is that?
I think it's for playing time's the most obvious. Why is my kid not playing?
Yeah.
And like I always say, you shouldn't slap the kid on the head, slap the parent on the head.
Yeah.
Because it's the parent's fault, not the kid's fault. But I think that, playing time and where they rank on a team seems to be really important to parents. And what they don't teach anymore is that, we're playing to win. We're not playing for individual stats, but yeah.
I understand that. Yeah, my dad, I mean, when I first started playing, he coached one of my first teams, and I didn't realize it at the time, but he tucked me away in right field because he was trying to hide my deficiencies as a ball player,
That was
But
the
that's
spot.
okay. Yeah, it's like, here, you go out to right field, and I said, he goes, you got a strong arm, so I'm relying on you to get the ball to the infield if there's a big hit. And I was like, I can do that for you, Dad. And I realized now what he was doing, but, it was an opportunity to play and participate. But what I enjoyed the most, and I remember the relationships I had with my friends and the fun that we had being out there in the field together. And then, through practice and work, when you would be able to do something you hadn't been able to do, a few weeks before, a couple of months prior to that, and you would start to grow, then I found enjoyment in that. But mostly it was about the relationships with your friends.
Absolutely.
Yep. And they were neighborhood relationships. Like I said earlier, community. I always used to tease Dan, what are your kids doing? And they were always up at Madeline playing wiffle ball.
Yep.
Wiffle ball was awesome.
Right.
It's the best game. The best game.
Because we had, and I'm sure you had this too, but when we would play, pickup baseball at my grandma's house in Ponca City, Oklahoma, certain fence lines, like if you hit it over into that guy's garden, that's a home run. We'd have ghost runners if needed. Like we had the whole setup in the way we had it. And sometimes we'd go wiffle ball and sometimes we'd go baseball, but those were awesome times.
Do you have any neighbors where you knew you lost the ball if it went in their yard?
Yeah, his name was Mr. Hildebrand, and if he caught you in the yard, he would chew your ass out. He was all over you. I'm like, here, you go get that, Chris. My brother would try to trick me to go over and get the ball. I'm like, I'm not going to the Hildebrand's yard. That guy would yell at you.
Yeah, I had one of those.
Yeah, it was. Of course, back then it was a little bit different, where it was like a communal punishment, right? So if you were doing something that a neighbor deemed inappropriate, you could get whipped by somebody else, and your dad would be like, "Oh, I appreciate you taking care of my son. I told him not to do that."
It's like your teachers, right?
Yeah.
Don't come home and tell me your teacher did something to you.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we'll come back. Dan Segel and Gus Farah in studio. We'll dive into the West Coast League and find out some of the details on that. And then Gus will get his personal story and where he came from, which is pretty awesome as well. You got the Rip City Drive.
Best
All right, very happy to have in studio Dan Segel and Gus Farah talk a little baseball. But before we get back to the West Coast League, and we'll get some background from Dan. Now, Gus, you're originally from Cuba. You got to share your story on how you got to the United States.
Didn't you interview me once, Jed?
I did, but that was a long time ago, and we got new listeners. How did it come to be that Gus Farah is now part of the United States?
Well, in 1961, as things were rumbling in Cuba, my parents decided that they needed to get out of there, and they wanted to immigrate to the United States. And part of what that deal is that the able men, need to work in the sugarcane fields. So my dad had to go work in the sugarcane fields with my uncle for a year. Then once that got done, the United States created some freedom flights, and there was a quota, and we hit the number. We were able to get on that quota because we had an aunt over here that was able to claim us, so the government didn't have to worry about us. And we ended up in Portland. They got to work. They worked 2 jobs for 8 years. They were middle class. Grew up in North Portland, and they did their thing. But, like my dad always said, being middle class in the United States is like hitting the lottery, and you're rich like in Cuba, because it's just so bad. It's no freedom, no rights, it's just terrible. But, yeah, my whole family's over here, and little by little, the rest of my aunts and uncles and cousins, they all ended up here. Nobody's left behind now.
Are they all happy that they made the journey?
Oh my God! I mean, especially the ones that have come over in the last 10 years. You talk to them and they're just giddy, because it's so hard. You're thinking about how to eat every day, and you're thinking about if you get sick, you're not going to get medicine. You're just really risking yourself, and you have no voice. You can't object. You can't protest because they've taken your weapons away. So basically, the government is the only winner in this thing, both financially and just with what they have to live.
Yeah, so this is important. And I picked this up on, talking to people, and we see it through the news all the time. People complain. We like to complain a lot here in the United States, right? But when you talk to people who have lived elsewhere, and then they come over here, like, I would imagine for your family that made it over here, it's like a dream come true. Like, they literally can't believe the quality of life, the standard of living, what you have access to, the work opportunities. Like, it's probably mind-blowing, isn't it?
My parents never made more than like $32,000 a year, and they retired. And, they have a little retirement, and they live. My dad's passed, but my mom still lives okay.
Where does she live?
She lives in Charbonneau. Yeah, so she lives in Charbonneau, and
a lady from Cuba who retired and now lives in Charbonneau, which is beautiful. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, all her neighbors love her because she speaks kind of a little funny.
Yeah.
But they just worked their ass off. They came here, and they just decided that it was to get to work and to build something. The only reason they came here was because I was born, and they didn't want me to have to deal with the communism back there.
Yeah.
They didn't come here for themselves first. They came here for me.
That's great.
And so, as they saw us evolve into productive citizens,
yes,
they loved it.
That's great.
Yeah.
What does your mother call you? Does she call you Gus?
Gasanito.
Yeah, Gasanito?
Yeah.
I love it.
That's awesome, man. So how many total family members are living now in the States here?
Oh, God. I mean,
we're talking about a big number, right?
I have one brother. He was born here. He was born 6 years after we came to the States.
So were you born in Cuba?
I was born in Cuba.
Do you have memories of Cuba at all, or
Not
it was
really.
too long ago?
I was 3.
Yeah. Okay.
2.5. But my brother was born here. But we came as 11 family members: aunt, uncle, cousins. There was 11 of us, and at the time we were the largest refugee family in one landing to come to Portland.
Wow.
Yeah, front page of the Oregonian. And then as the Vietnamese came, they had bigger families that came. But for a long time, we were the largest single family, 11 of us, that had come to Portland. But, yeah, it's very emotional because my mom's parents died there.
Yeah.
They never got to come here. And the struggles of what I saw my mom go through to help support her family by sending what we could all the time to Cuba, was real, because they're on a ration card, a pound of rice a month, 2 eggs a month, a bar of soap every 4 months, things like that.
That's
Anyway,
awesome.
Yeah.
No, I love hearing that. That is a success story. And think about that, because of what your parents did, it changed your family forever.
Oh, forever.
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 Have you gone back?
I went back when I was 14. That was the first time they had opened the flights to let you go back.
Were you afraid you weren't going to be able to get back?
No, I wasn't afraid I wasn't going to be able to get back. I think I was too naive. But, for my brother, who was an American citizen at the time and was born here, he had a little hassle there as far as immigration and getting through and getting back out. But no, my mom went to see her parents, and then she went a couple more trips. But depending on who the president is, you can either go or you can't go.
Yeah.
You either go legally or you can't go legally, and you got to go through Jamaica or Mexico or somewhere else. Cuban people are just hardworking people that came here just to get ahead and to help their families. And there's quite a little population in Portland that have all become really tight and close friends, because it's hard to it's hard to explain where you came from to somebody that doesn't understand.
Yeah, I can't relate to that.
Exactly. And that's why we don't argue, right? When somebody says it can't be that bad, it's like, okay, it can't be that bad. Then you go try it, right?
Yeah. I'm good. I think I'll stay here. But I love your story.
Don't
man.
you want to write my foreword someday?
Yes,
Okay.
I do.
Yeah, okay. All right.
I'm in 100%. That's a great. Don't you love that story, Dan?
It's amazing. I did not know the Gusanito.
Gusanito.
I love it. I will use that.
We only speak Spanish at my mom's house.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
She would probably demand that, right?
She
wants
would
you
demand
to.
that.
That's great.
And she corrects you when you're wrong.
Yeah. My mom still corrects me.
I know.
My mom turned 77 today, so I'm going to go have dinner with her. But my dad told me something that was so true at a younger age. He goes, your mom is always going to be your mom, and the sooner you understand that, the easier life is going to be. It's truer words were never spoken.
I we'll get back to this because I want to talk baseball and I want Dan to talk about West Coast League history a little bit. But I had my shoulder replaced 2.5 years ago, and
Yeah.
my mom insisted that she had to come to my house
Yeah.
to take care of me.
Yeah.
I have a wife, right? But my wife gave up on me, I think, in 2 days.
Yeah.
And my mom slept on a couch next to me
That's awesome.
for 5 days.
Wow.
Yep. And it didn't matter what time of the night I was hungry or whatever I needed. And this poor lady has a hard time getting up off the couch.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is insane.
Yeah. That's
But
called.
that's mom.
That's mom right there. I love
That's
that.
mom.
All right, Dan, why don't you give us some background on the West Coast League for those who don't know
Sure.
the story behind it, what it is?
Well, first, I'd share this is our 20th anniversary season. The West Coast League established 2005. It's wood bat baseball. It's college players. We're in 17 markets across, Oregon, Washington, British Columbia, and even Alberta. We have a team in Edmonton. They used to have a AAA club, the Trappers, and they play in a wonderful ballpark. They renovated that AAA park, but we're all over the map. It's a pretty exciting footprint. Here in Oregon, we have, the Portland Pickles. We have the Bend Elks, Springfield Drifters down in the Eugene-Springfield area, and then the Corvallis Knights at Oregon State University. But
And one new one. The
One new-
Salem,
yeah,
the
then-
Salem
yeah.
Marionberries.
Thank you, Gus. The Marionberries that are going to play out of Willamette University.
Oh,
So
that's terrific.
we're super excited about that, and they've got a lot of support, great ownership group. That first season, as Gus knows, is hard, but they will give that market affordable family entertainment. It'll be, that's where you'll go to watch baseball, and as you know, in the Salem area, rich tradition in baseball. But yeah, and up in Clark County, you got the Richfield Raptors, who's done very well there, Gus can talk about the growth, at some point, but very competitive baseball, and you get kids from California across the country, Oregon State, Oregon, Washington State, all kinds of conferences like, the West Coast Conference, Big West, the former Pac-12. So I guess, we're looking at the Big 12 and the Big 10. We started the league with Jim Dietz as our commissioner, the old San Diego State head coach. He had some experience in the old Alaska Baseball League. Now Rob Nyer, the baseball author, is our commissioner.
Yep.
We've had quite a bit of stability. We're an international league, having the Canadian teams, on a couple of them on Vancouver Island, Victoria Harbor Cats being one of them. That's been, they're in a bigger market. And then the Kamloops, Nanaimo
is
the
on
other
the
team
island,
on
and
the
then
island.
you have Kamloops,
And
Kelowna.
Yeah. So it's grown. And what I would tell you, Chad, is that the West Coast League has filled old pro markets and then has been the place for emerging markets. Because if you look at our teams, we've got a lot of old Northwest League teams like in Yakima, Walla Walla, Wenatchee, Bend, Bellingham. These are markets that used to have pro ball.
Yeah, and of course it provides, like you mentioned, affordable family entertainment,
Yep.
which is great. And then tell me about the players. Like, what type of player is going into the West Coast
I'll give you an
League?
example. I was up in Seattle yesterday, or the last 2 days, and went to Mariner games, and I was kind of bummed that I missed today's game because Terry Skubal was on the mound, and he played in our league, Cy Young winner. Shane Bieber, who won a Cy Young, played for the Cowlitz Black Bears up in Longview. Adley Rutschman's played in the league. Stephen Kwan. Kwani's got gold gloves. Rutschman is a superstar.
Travis Benzana.
And Travis Bizana, we run the Corvallis Knights, and we're going to have a Travis Bizana bobblehead night this summer. So he was a 1-1. We've got a couple kids that have a shot at being the first pick this 2025 draft in Ava Arquette down at Oregon State, and Tyler Bremner, who's down at UC Santa Barbara. Baseball America had him at 3 and 5 right now, in kind of a mock draft. But Arquette played with the Wenatchee Apple Sox, one of our founding members, and then Bremner pitched with the Corvallis Knights. But yeah, it's exciting to go to games. You might see a guy like Matt McClain come through, who played for the Bells. Jaron Duran, who's with the Red Sox, played with the Walla Walla Sweets. We see a lot of talented college players that have a bright future in professional baseball.
That's terrific. Now, when you start a team, talk to me about the process. How difficult was it to build a team like the Ridgefield Raptors and get the necessary support to make it work?
Well, the Raptors, it's hard any way you cut it the first year because you don't know what you're doing. You're trying to build a community that will support you with ticket sales, with sponsorships, with host families. We're like the Winterhawks. We have host families.
Yep.
So the kids stay with local community families that put them up for the summer. It was very difficult. I leaned on Dan a lot. We were personal friends, and I would call and ask Dan, and Dan would calm me down and say, calm down.
Yeah, that was my main job.
Calm down.
Keep him focused.
It's going to be okay.
Yep.
But, in Ridgefield, we had a park, which is important, right? That's what we all first need. And it's not as easy as saying you just have a park. You have to have a place to call home. And we did. We had a city council that wanted the team there. We were able to get a 20-year lease on it. And then all of a sudden we had to say, hey, come buy tickets. Hey, trust me with sponsorship. But that's my background in radio and Trailblazers, a lot of old relationships, right? We've done well. And baseball-wise, we've made the playoffs 4 years in a row. That's not easy. We seem to keep running into people like the Corvallis Knights who eliminate our season. But we'll get it. We'll get it.
Did you see Ridgefield back in the day growing into the community it's become? Because it continues to grow and it's thriving.
It's crazy. We have Costco now. We have In-N-Out coming. It's just the infrastructure is just blowing up, right? They're at I think we're at about 15,000 people right now, and they think it's going to go to 30. But the support from the community there is really, really strong. We're up to about 1,450 people a night that come to the games. But you're the Prairie High School guy.
I know.
Yeah.
You got to throw the first pitch sometime.
I'm come out whenever you want.
Okay, you and Richie Sexton
I don't want to do it on the same night as Richie because he'll make me look bad. But he was our claim to fame. 300 home runs in his major league career, by the way.
Yeah.
He was pretty good.
So, yeah, Richfield was a natural growing location, but we had the support of the community, as Dan knows, and Dan's a community guy because he's built this Corvallis thing from the ground up, and it's just all roots, right? He's got roots growing everywhere where the Corvallis community understands why he's there. He's developing kids. We're developing broadcasters. We're developing interns that are moving on to other jobs. So everybody's developing, right? I wish I was, but I'm 60 now. So it's just all about development, and it's about community, and it's a gathering place. To me, it's Southwest Washington's gathering place in the summer.
Yeah, Gus nailed it there because that's what we are. You know, we're a platform for development, from interns to players, to broadcasters, to staff. You know, we're trying to get everybody to the next level. That's our job. And, you know, community. You know, we are involved in our communities. We like to say in the league, it's player first, community first. And that's the neat thing, too, about these markets. You know, they're the smaller to mid-sized markets, and they need that, you know.
Yeah, they need the gathering place.
They need the gathering place. And you know, they need the, you know, down in Corvallis, we talk about enhancement, enrichment, and to embolden our, you know, we'll call it the greater Corvallis area.
Yeah.
But there's not a lot of options like in Clark County that's just growing, you know, it's growing and thriving. This will be the place.
Yeah.
You know, that is where you'll go to see your neighbors and your friends and your coworkers. And we need spaces like that to keep the human connection, the human experience, because, you know, with technology and everything, it's harder and harder to get people out because they're in their basement or on their phone or tied into some sort of technology. But that's you know, connected, but it disconnects people. And I think Gus and I are about people, bringing them together. But at least down in Corvallis, we're really on this human connection thing, human experience thing, because I think we can't, you know, we've got to keep that going, or, you know, then if we're not, what are we doing?
I agree. All right. We got Dan Segel and Gus Farah in studio. They're going to hang out with me for another segment. I want to talk about that human connection because my Nana shared her thoughts on that because she saw the time where it changed, and I want to get your thoughts on that as well. So we'll discuss that next. And then we'll talk with Cale Wombacher coming up at 5. You got the Rip City Drive with Chad doing.
Awesome.
All right, Rip City Drive, Dan Segel and Gus Farah. We're talking West Coast League. So here's this goes back to I think the research guy, his last name was Putnam, and he talked about this idea of social capital. And I was talking to my Nana about this, and what she told me she noticed is that in the neighborhood she grew up in when she was younger, the houses were built with like front porches, right? And that people in the neighborhood the families would hang out on their porch, and the neighbors would converse, and you knew everyone on your street, right? There was a close connection there. And there were a lot of, people who were involved in different groups like the Elks Lodge or, would work at the Salvation Army or do all these things to where they were community connected. But what my Nana told me was that she notices that right around the time that the TV became a big thing in everyone's home, and then the houses and the way they were built started to change where there were less front porches and people had the garage doors. And then we got power garage door openers where people would get home from work, drive into their garage, close the door. They go downstairs to the living room and start watching TV. So you have less interaction amongst your neighbors and community. And then what you're finding out about people is from media and the news. So you naturally have more of a negative view on humans because you're getting a lot of negative news. And then that slowly starts the deterioration of, the society in which you're a part of. So if I'm hearing you guys correctly, then for what you're doing in baseball with the West Coast League and working with the youth, high schools, and younger than that, is you guys are just ultimately trying to make sure that the game stays alive, that you continue to grow baseball players, get kids involved so that in the end you have these community gathering places. Is that a good simplified form of what you're trying to accomplish?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think that baseball is a gritty,
Yeah.
dirty fingernail game.
Yes.
It's not a clean game.
Yeah.
You have to grind. If you're going to be a baseball player, you're going to grind.
Yeah.
And I think that that's just not a characteristic that a lot of these young people have now.
Yeah.
Because they want the instant reward of what's on their phone, what's on their computer. Yeah. And baseball is about concentration, about a routine that you show up at 2:00, you take batting practice, your game's at 6 o'clock, and then you go home and sleep and you do it all over again. That's just not. It's just not something that is comfortable for a lot of our youth now and the way they're being
Well, then what's
raised.
the key to getting the families and the kids to commit to getting out of the house and into that space that you're talking about? What's the key to doing that?
Well, I think you got to be creative, right?
Mm-hmm.
One, have a fun environment. You just got to be as persuasive as you can with your community involvement, your marketing, and some way, somehow you got to get them out there. And then with the players, you got to make it easier to play. Right. And then you got to engage with them. And because, that's pretty critical, especially in today's age.
Baseball's a life lesson game.
Yeah.
And I think that the coaches and the instructors that can tell those stories about life are really the ones that will make the greatest impact at the end of the day. Here's another thing. We employ 50 high school aged, college aged kids in Richfield and in Cowlitz every summer. So, it's a big pride point for us, but it's also an engagement now where, we're saying, why did they do it? Because Dan said they're having fun.
Yeah.
Well, it's easier now for us to hire than ever because the kid last year said it's fun to work at the park, right? Well, he's not a player. He's not playing high school baseball, but he needs a job or she needs a job. So I think it's about trying to make it fun and don't forget one thing. You're developing anybody that's at that park that day, employees, players, personnel, they're all developing.
Every facet, Chad.
That's
Every
great.
facet.
So for those who don't know, when is the traditional season from start to finish for Pacific Coast or West Coast League?
Beginning of June through mid-August.
Yeah, we'll play May 29th, and we'll knock it off. The championship game is when, Dan?
Mid-August.
He's familiar with the championship day.
He's very familiar. You know what? I'd like you to ask him how many they've won and how many in a row. Because
how many have you won in a row?
Okay, well we won 7 in a row. However, we ran into a very, very good Portland Pickles team last summer and lost in the semis. And the Pickles won the West Coast League. They had a great team, and they've got an incredible brand, and
they've got good fan support
good
too,
fan
right?
support too, huge. They're
so. What's been the key to the Pickle success?
Well, I think their branding, and just their brilliant marketers to be able to build a brand like that in a metropolitan area, because that's typically
I see the mascot everywhere.
everywhere. Dylan the pickle, yeah, the pickle is everywhere. So they're just really, really good.
They figured out that Portland edge.
Oh yeah,
You know, the weirdness of Portland.
Yeah,
as we all
they
laugh
tapped
about.
tapped into that
They
vein.
tapped into that big time, and they won that game of tapping into it. I mean, they'll put 100,000 people into Walker Stadium for 35 games or whatever.
That's
Yeah.
terrific. And the good thing is about Portland, if you find that niche, people will support you.
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
he doesn't have to worry. You're going to have Kale on here in a minute. You know, it's not a competition thing
No.
for them because it's a different crowd.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, Kale's got the serious baseball player and / fans watching these guys develop as they move up into the pros, where these guys are just it's entertainment at the Pickles. You know?
yeah,
But I would guess that KL probably respects what you guys are doing a great deal because of where he came from.
Totally.
yeah. I'll tell you, Chad, Kale's the best. There's no one better, and we appreciate him, and he's always there for us if we have questions. He's supportive of the baseball community throughout
Yes.
the metro area, and
He's supportive of Major League Baseball coming to Portland. He thinks that it helps everyone win.
yeah. No, I mean, but I mean, it's unique that you've got two incredible operators already here in the Hops and the Pickles. You know, their management is next level, and I think Gus and I really appreciate them, raising the tide, right?
All boats are rising on high tide, right?
Yeah.
And people always ask, are the hops competition? Well, no, they're not, because of both geography and the style of why a fan goes to a game. Does the same fan go to both games? Yes, some. But looking at Major League Baseball, that's the thing people want to ask us, which is, what does that do to us, to the West Coast League? And I don't think a lot, because I think they're different reasonings why you go, different price point for sure.
Which is a big deal. When you have kids and you're trying to figure out how you can do things together as a family without breaking the bank, it's hard to find those type of activities now.
What I think we're really good at is accessibility and affordability. They go hand in hand.
Gus Farah, Ridgefield Raptors, Dan Segel, Corvallis Knights. I can't tell you how awesome it is to have you guys in studio today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chad.
I love you, Gus. You're awesome.
Always love being here with you.
Gus Arito.
You're a special guy to me, man.
No, you're awesome. You guys are great. When we come back, Kale Wombacher of the Hillsboro Hops will join us. We'll keep things rolling here on the Rip City Drive. Big thanks to Dan and Gus for joining him in studio here on 620 Rip City Radio. All right, it's great to have baseball season back. The Hillsboro Hops are going to kick off their season at Hillsboro Ballpark coming up on Friday against Eugene. First pitch at 6:35. And for tickets, you can always head to HillsboroHops.com. And joining us right now is their general manager, Cale Wombacher. Cale, thanks for coming on. It's always great to have you on the show.
Oh, it's great to be on, Chad. How are you?
Oh, very well. I was talking with Seth Hoyland earlier today, and he made a really good point I wanted to ask you about that. You have so many new players that come in from different parts of the country, and many of them who have never been to the Northwest and especially Hillsboro. So, what are the different things you do to get them acclimated and comfortable with their surroundings? Because not only do they worry about their game and trying to become a better baseball player, but then you uproot and go to a different part of the country. That's got to be scary for a young man.
Yeah, it's crazy. Every year we've got players from all over the world, really. We have a kid from Mexico, we have multiple kids from Venezuela, Dominican Republic. We've had kids from Japan and Korea in the past, and then a lot of kids from the United States. Some of these kids have been at the Dominican Academy, which the D-backs just built a brand new academy in November, which is beautiful. And some have been through spring training 1 or 2 years. So there's a little bit of acclimation there. I think the biggest thing for us is we just want to make sure they feel welcome right from the moment they walk in the door. So we make sure that the place is spotless. We've got their uniforms ready. We make the kind of onboarding process very seamless for them when it comes to picking out their hats and their uniforms and getting all the D-backs issued gear and seeing where their locker is and meeting our clubhouse staff, that sort of thing, and just try to be as friendly as possible. So we put them at ease, put them at comfort, and then the D-backs typically send up a couple of people to help everyone get into their houses. So they a lot of times will just rent some Airbnbs for the guys for the year. So they'll drive them there, make sure all the utilities are good and furniture is good and stuff like that. So first day or two is really just getting them comfortable.
That's really terrific. I also have heard that you will, or the parent club, they'll send up translators as well. So for those who English is not their first language, they have people there that can help them adapt to their surroundings and help with the communication barriers as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we typically have someone that has worked at the academy, so they've worked with the players down in Dominican, all the Latin players predominantly. And the D-backs have done a much better job with working with these kids. A lot of them are signed when they're 15, 16 years old. And they put them through English lessons from day one. Their goal is by the time they get to A-ball that they're fully bilingual. They're not quite there yet, but that's the D-backs vision of how early they want to start their English lessons. And then the other thing they do, which they were the first organization to do this in Major League Baseball, is they guarantee their GED. So whether they make it to the major leagues or not, all of the Latin players, they're guaranteed a GED. So they go through a coursework when they're at the academy and then when they're in spring training at Salt River. So they really try to educate these players and make sure that they're prepared for the life in the U.S.
We're talking with Cale Wombacher, who is the general manager of the Hops. 17 players joining the Hops roster for the first time this year. The other thing that's great, too, is you're being supplied with some excellent ball players. 7 of the top 17 overall prospects for the Diamondbacks right now are going to be on the Hops roster to start the year. That's awesome.
Yeah, we're loaded. They have been talking about this team for 2 years. Of course, we've got the number 2 overall pick from the 2022 draft, Drew Jones. His dad, Andrew Jones, played in the major leagues for many, many years, borderline Hall of Famer. We also have their first-round pick from 2024, Ryan Waldschmidt, and then their number 2 prospect, Demetrio Chrysantis. I'm still learning his name, but Demetrio is a pretty cool story. He's got an active 50-game on-base streak that's entering this season. The MLB record, I think he's like 14 away from the MILB record. The MLB record is, of course, Ted Williams with 84 straight games. But Kevin Millar and Kevin Youkilis hold the MILB record at 71. So he's pretty excited about trying to beat that streak.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. He did it. It started June 25th all the way to the end of the regular season at Single A Visalia. That is awesome.
It's incredible. Yeah, it's incredible. And he was a high school draft kid too. So I mean, he's just a young pup, but number 2 prospect. in all the D-back system, along with some really high draft picks. It's going to be a really fun team.
Well, I would imagine for you, because I've talked to a number of your players in the past, and each and every one I've talked to, when they arrive in Hillsborough for the first time and get a look at the operation and the facilities that they get to utilize, they're all taken back by how nice the operation is. That's got to make you feel good to know that you put something together that's pretty solid in Hillsborough.
Yeah, our goal, I mean, even from when we moved here in 2013, has been to try to provide a major league experience for these players. A lot of them, I mean, at A-ball level, probably 20 to 30% of them are going to make the big leagues, but so the majority are not. But they're all professional baseball players. They're all being paid to play this game and treated like professionals. So we want to make sure their experience in Hillsborough is a major league quality experience. We would love our best value is when players do make the big leagues and they're interviewed, talked about, what was your favorite place in the minor leagues? And they all say Hillsborough. Like, that just warms our heart that we made an impact on their lives. That's
great. Now, KL, I was told that you've got something pretty sweet going on this weekend for the opening series there in Hillsborough, that you're going to have like a metal rod that's going to be a part of the structure in the new stadium that fans can come out and sign that will be a part of the new stadium. Is that true?
Yeah, it's there now. It's a beam. It's a big beam.
Love that.
So it'll be installed in the concourse in the new ballpark. So right as you walk in the main concourse, that beam will be kind of front and center. So it's one of those kind of once in a lifetime experiences where you can come out with your family, you put your name on the beam, and then for the next generation, when you're coming to Hops games at this new ballpark, you'll be able to walk into the concourse and see your family name up there, and it's going to be pretty special.
You know what that reminds me of? It's like when you go to a structure. Sometimes cities, they'll sell off bricks to different, buildings that they build or stadiums or whatever, where you can have your name imprinted in the brick. Or I remember when my dad built our house in Oklahoma when I was younger, out in the country. We all put our fingerprints on the foundation when they put the concrete in, which was pretty cool. But that's what that reminds me of, man. I think it's neat to be a part of that.
Yeah. No, it's pretty special. I mean, that's the great thing about sports stadiums. They're really community centers. We just happen to play a sport in them, but you have people from all walks of life that are going to enjoy this facility, whether it's going to be for a concert or a Hops game or a community festival or whatever it is, a high school baseball game. And so to be able to kind of be a part of that history and do it as a family, you bring your kids out and you get to sign that beam this weekend. And then 10 years from now, you're coming back to the game, and you get to see your name, and take a picture, and it's going to be pretty special.
That's pretty awesome. K.L. Wombacher, general manager of the Hillsborough Hops here on the Rip City Drive. What's the latest that you're seeing with the construction of the new stadium? How are things coming along?
It's coming really well. We're on a great pace to finish in December. Mortensen, our contractor, has been phenomenal. We are still flying a little bit of steel for the roof line, but most of the steel work is done. They've started pouring the concrete floors. So on the service level, a lot of that floor is done. They're now going to move up to the concourse level, get those floors done. And then from there, they'll start enclosing the building. And that should happen within a couple of weeks. So, but now like the structure's there. It's pretty impressive. And it's been fun. We have a season ticket holder event tonight, and just watching people's faces as they walk up to the ballpark for the first time and see the structure next door, they're just grinning ear to ear. They just can't believe it. So it's been neat to share. We've seen this go up slowly. Yeah. So for us, it's just it's not like it loses its luster. We're still excited every day. But someone that hasn't been here for months and they drive in the parking lot and see this massive structure, it's pretty cool.
But that's got to be fun for you because you see it all the time. And you've gotten a little bit used to it, but when you see their eyes light up, doesn't that give you a thrill?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it just reminds us how popular and just how great this new venue is going to be for the community and the impact the venue is going to have. Sports teams definitely have an impact, but it's really the venues that make the most impact in the community because the sports teams can kind of come and go for the most part. Players come and go and coaches come and go, but the memories you make in those venues, whether it's the Moda Center, Providence Park, now our new ballpark, those are going to be lifelong memories for a lot of people. And they may or may not remember the player that they saw that day, but they definitely will remember the experience that they had.
What are some big things coming up this year that you're excited about?
Honestly, for me, I'm really excited for this team. Not that I haven't been with other teams, but we just haven't been loaded like this in a while with some really, really high prospects. We might have one or two, big time prospects, but to have the number 2 overall pick, to have another first rounder, and then to have the number 2 prospect, I mean, those 3 guys alone, plus quite a few other guys that were high draft picks. Our pitching rotation should be really strong. Our bullpen should be really strong. And then we've got a really strong coaching staff. I mean, we have one of our hitting coaches was in AAA with the Mariners. Another hitting coach was with the Chicago Cubs for a few years, actually coached Dansby Swanson last year in Chicago. And then our manager was in AAA for many years too. So having that experience on our coaching staff, work with these really young, talented players, it's going to be super fun to watch.
Yeah, it's got to be. Well, I would imagine for you, it's great because you get a chance to meet the young players and watch them develop. But that's what I enjoy is seeing young prospects get experience and continue to work on their game. And then with time, you can see the improvement and know that they've got bigger things ahead of them. I enjoy that process.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we don't have to look very far to see the fruits of the labor too. When we look at the D-backs right now, they've put themselves in a position. They were in the World Series a couple of years ago, and they've now built that organization to be pretty sustainable in a very, very challenging NL West. And the players that are now making an impact for them, Corbin Carroll, Brandon Pfaadt, Jake McCarthy, who had a nice stolen base last night. These Perdomo, who just got a really nice extension on his deal. These guys all came through Hillsborough. And so to now see them be cornerstone pieces of a franchise that's on the rise and is a pretty exciting team to watch. And now we get to see the next wave of players that are going to be the next Corbin Carroll and the next, impact player at the big leagues. We get to watch them this summer. It's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, that NL West right now is looking pretty competitive. The Diamondbacks have great young talent. The Dodgers are on fire, as are the Padres, and the Giants are off to a good start. It's crazy.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's become the best division in baseball without a doubt.
Well, I'll tell you what, KL, I wish you the best. We're excited for a baseball season to get underway. And for those of you who are wondering, it's going to kick off at Hillsborough Ballpark on Friday, which is April 4th. First pitch is at 6:35. Hillsborough will be taking on Eugene, and you can get tickets. Always go to hillsboroughhops.com. And, of course, you can listen to every game live here on 620 Rip City Radio. But I just wish you nothing but the best, KL. Looking forward to the baseball season, and I always love it when you come on the show.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, Chad. Look forward to seeing you in person soon.
You got it, buddy. There you go, Cale Wombacher. I mean, you heard it from Dan and from Gus that Cale Wombacher is the best. And I can say this with confidence that Cale Wombacher is one of the smartest human beings I've ever come across in life. The guy is smart. He's super cool. He was able to work with a bunch of people to get the funding from the state legislature to get that new ballpark underway in Hillsborough. He pulled it off. That's amazing to me. But Cale's an impressive man. That is an impressive dude. Now, I realize it's not harder to find other human beings that are smarter than me, wiser than me, but Cale Wombacher's great. All right, we'll keep things rolling. Rip City Drive, I do appreciate your time. Celeste Tripp, my good friend, is going to join us in studio coming up next. And we're going to talk about, well, what women want. And we're going to talk about hair loss today and how to deal with that. And she is an expert in that department. And look, I'm here to help people, all right? So whatever we can do to help people. But enjoying today's show. Hope you're having a good day out there. If you want to jump on board, 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. And then tomorrow, the Trailblazers back in action. 4:30 tip in Toronto against the Raptors. Chris Burkhardt will have game day starting at 2:30. All right, she is fresh off her San Diego vacation, back in studio from Harem, Celeste Tripp. Celeste, how was your time down in San Diego?
Hey, Chad.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you. It's been a couple weeks.
I know. You look like you got a little sun. How was it down there?
You know what? It was pretty nice. It was not raining like here.
Yes.
Sorry I didn't bring the sun today like the past. But it was low. It was low 60s.
Okay.
Not really bikini weather.
Yes. But you had a good time.
But
You
it was
went with
great.
so this is your childhood bestie then that you went with?
Yeah, since we were 7th grade.
Yeah.
So it was fun. She has a place there, so I've spent a bit of time. Pacific Beach, if you're familiar.
I am. Yeah.
So the promenade, you can go out on, well, I didn't have roller skates, but a lot of people skating,
Yes.
riding our bikes.
Yeah,
it's
San
great.
Diego's terrific. That's one of those places where if I retired in San Diego, I'd probably be pretty happy because the weather year-round is really nice. It promotes a lot of outdoor activities, which I like.
Oh, it's such a great lifestyle.
Yes, and I'm just waiting for the sunshine. See, this is okay because the Blazer season's still going, but golf season's right around the corner, so I'm just hoping that, like last year, we get more sunshine come April time.
Do you remember, was it 2 years ago? I'm in the hills. I
Yeah.
got 10 inches of snow in April.
Yeah, we did. I
It
remember
was
that
crazy.
because I went out on the golf course not too long after that, and there was still some snow in parts of the fairways. I'm like, what's going on here?
Yeah. I don't want to sign up for that again.
Yeah, I don't need that.
That tore up my yard pretty good.
I don't need that at all. But it's great to have you back in studio, and I love today's topic because this is an issue that a lot of men deal with, and I've got many friends who deal with this, and there's many different ways you can go about it. But hair loss, right? It's important.
Well, I think it's one of maybe the top 3 for sure fears men have. Would you agree?
Yeah, because
I mean, you're
still
fortunate
have.
you haven't lost any hair.
I know. and
Yet,
I
Chad,
keep
yet.
asking my hairstylist, like,
You're
is
not
it going to
50
stay?
yet,
I know.
I'm
Close to 50.
Don't want to scare you.
No, but I keep asking, like, am I going to keep it? Is it going to stay there? Because, hair is like, for me, and I know it's different for everyone, but like, I love women's hair. I like having my hair because I like just being able to have hair and style it and so forth. And I like the way it looks. But, not everyone is guaranteed that. And I've talked to friends who have lost hair, and a lot of them deal with it in different ways. Some guys I know that will wear hats. Some have gone with just a full-on, razor, and they shave their head. But I never get the sense that they're happy with any of their solutions. They don't like it, right?
It's hard, and everyone's different. I mean, some men can totally just own it, and they just go with it, and they have the confidence. I have many friends like that. They fought it for a while, of course.
Yeah.
They did everything they could to style it, do different topical solutions, different treatments, and eventually just said, okay, I'm just going to buzz it. These particular friends didn't shave it down, but they buzzed it really tight.
Yeah.
And they just owned it, and they had the confidence to pull it off really well. And I thought it looked better than them trying to manage to get by,
Yes.
and but to each their own, I guess. I think there are just some ways that men can make different choices that might make them feel more confident, and I think it'd be great.
Well, do you think the confidence makes a big difference in terms of your presentation? So if you own something and you're confident in your presentation, that probably comes across in a much better way, I would guess.
It does, because we all know when people are insecure about something,
Yeah.
right? It comes across in different ways. And I have complete empathy. I mean, women do lose hair also as they age, but not like men do. And, I can understand how it totally changes your look.
Mm-hmm.
And I can understand why you would be really fearful of having to go through that process.
Yeah,
But there are things you can do.
Yeah, my mom turned 77 today, but I know that her hair has been thinning over the last couple of years, and it's a big deal for her, right? Because, her hair has always been, an important part of her beauty or a beauty mark, so to speak. So I know it's been a struggle for her, trying to find solutions for that.
Right. And it's always been okay in societal norms for women to spend money and time to look their best, right?
Yes.
We all know.
It's almost an expectation.
Some men don't want to know how much their women are spending on these things, but they're spending likely a lot more than they are. And I would just love for men to know that it's okay for them to invest in themselves, to feel good.
So why is it that guys don't want to admit that they invest in themselves or don't feel comfortable investing in
Well,
themselves?
that's a good question for you, Chad.
Well, I think it probably goes back to I invest in myself, but I know for like guys from my dad's era or age, they just look at that kind of stuff like, "No, I'm a man. I'm not going to do that." Right?
Real men don't invest that time or money into themselves.
Like my papa would never do that. Or
The
my dad.
times have changed.
Yes.
And I'm pretty sure that men's partners would be thankful that they would put that effort into looking great. If nothing else, that they feel good about themselves.
Yeah.
Because I think I like dating men who are bald because I know what they're going to look like bald.
Yeah.
Right. And they can own it and they can be really sexy. But also, men don't want to they don't want, I think, not all men, don't want to generalize this, but a lot of men are embarrassed if they were to invest money and, say, do hair transplants, that would be something like shameful to them. And I would just hope that they could move past that and realize that's nothing to be embarrassed about. If that makes you feel good and look your best, why not? And there's a lot of different ways to do it. I had a friend who was just going to go to Turkey, and I guess they're the place to go for overseas hair transplants. I guess they got the rugs on the top. I had to throw that out.
So they're dialed in.
They got the rugs on the head and on the floor. But you can have your whole vacation paid for.
Yes.
And pay maybe half of what you would pay locally and go to Turkey and have a whole resort experience, heal from the transplants, and come back. And what a lot of people do is they'll shave I think you have to shave it before you have the transplants anyway. But we've had clients, we have a lot of clients who have transplants, and you really wouldn't even know they have them unless you were like in their hair.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people might think back in the day, transplants, you could actually see them in, it looks really bad.
Yeah.
But that's not how they are now. And at least depending on who does them, I'm sure. But I think for the majority, the way the techniques they have now are really realistic. But it's definitely worth looking into if men are concerned about the loss they're having.
Well, this is a very good question. Like, I know that there's got to be better solutions than, like, my Uncle Howard was a great man, but he wore a toupee, and it looked like a toupee, and you could tell it was fake. It was awful. And I know my Aunt Vicky couldn't stand it, but he did that. And so, again, that was a long time ago. So there have been a lot of advances in the technology and what people can do with their hair. So what are some of the options, viable options for men who are facing hair loss?
Yeah. So besides, it's funny you mentioned the toupee. Did you watch the Menendez brothers?
Yes.
That was incredible, wasn't it? I didn't realize he had a rug. I mean, like a toupee. And they can make those look really good.
Yeah.
So maybe that's an option. I'm not really aware of that process, but
they've gotten better over time.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be a little embarrassing if it fell off in inopportune times. But so besides hair transplants, another thing that's becoming, I'm not sure if it's really that common or popular, but taking tattooing for hair follicle. So it's almost like emulating a stubble.
Yeah.
So, of course, it's not going to give you hair, but it's going to make it look like you have stubble. So maybe somebody who is receding a little bit might fill in the receding hairline with tattoo. And surprisingly, they're charging a ton for that. So I'm not really sure if it's just because it's new. And I don't know anyone who's had it. So I'm not speaking for it. Just it's something out there right now. Another thing is that you can just get a fiber filler. So if you're starting to maybe get the back of your head, you're starting to see a little bit more scalp, because that's really what starts to be obvious is your pale skin, your hair, the dark hair. So you can have a fiber type product that you can put into your hair, kind of fills it in a little bit, and so you don't see that white scalp poking through.
Yeah.
So that's an option. And then of course just shaving it off.
Yeah.
Either having a stubble, like taking a one guard, and you can even save money doing it yourself, right? Not that we're, hair, we can do it for you also with the scalp massage, or you can do it yourself, or shave it.
How do you know if shaving is the right way to go? Like, does everyone have a head that is meant to be bald or no? Like, what's the answer on that?
Unfortunately not. Yeah. My brother's one of those people. Yeah. He's mostly bald on the top, and he's always said, I'm never going to shave the whole thing because he has a lumpy head.
Yeah.
So, I think that's, you may not know that until you do it one time. Maybe you start with a number one guard.
So there's no real way to know until you do it to know if you got the right head for it or not.
Yeah, you could probably feel a few lumps and know if you have those. But as far as the shape of your head, of course, you're going to look very different. I mean, if you're used to walking around with hair on your head, it's going to take you a while to get used to this new look. But what a lot of people do also is they start growing facial hair, and that seems to pull together the look really well. So whether they're doing a beard or they're doing just 5 o'clock shadow, whatever they're doing. So.
And I've got a couple of friends who do that. They have a full beard and they are bald, but they look good. Like, I look at them and I don't think, man, they're bald. I think, gosh, how do you pull that off and look so great at the same time?
Well, they're low maintenance, right?
Yeah, there
On
is
a
help
rainy
there.
day like today, they could care less.
You don't have to worry about a bad hair day. You don't have to worry about styling your hair. You got to keep up on the shaving of your head. But, some guys that have the right head for it, they look great.
Yeah,
And the beard look is a good one, too.
right. I think it's just like we said, how you wear it and just your confidence.
Well, I guess the big question I have, Celeste, is that because I don't know the answer to this, but when you talk about hair transplants, what exactly is that? Like, what are they doing? How does that work exactly?
Well, I'm not an expert and I have not had it done,
Yes.
but I do know quite a few people who have had it done and they've been very happy with it. Some of them have actually had to go back more than once because once you continue to lose hair, you have to have it more follicles transplanted. But generally, from what they're doing is they're taking from the back of the scalp, like in the back of above the nape of your neck, and they're taking those follicles then, and one by one, they're taking those and implanting them in the areas where you're thinning. So it's a lengthy process and doesn't feel great.
Yeah.
But then it's over. And so but then I think you have a healing process of maybe a month. So if you did do a trip like, the Turkey experience, you would be by the pool, kind of relaxing while you're healing. You probably want to have a little bit of time off of work, obviously.
Now, you're growing your own hair at that point?
It's your own hair. Yeah. And I don't know if I imagine they might have hair donors.
Yes.
I don't know.
Interesting.
Should have done a little more research, I suppose.
But like you said, if you have that, I mean, it's real hair, so it looks like real hair.
It is amazing how real it is. Like I said, we have a lot of clients. It used to be that you had to go to a special place to get your hair done if you had hair transplants. But now at Hair M and at Chrome, we have a lot of clients who come in, and I even have an employee who's had them done. And, you wouldn't know it. Like I said, if once you get into the hair as a stylist, they would know probably.
That's great. And I have a very simple philosophy when it comes to getting something like that done with your hair, or whether it be breast implants or whatever the case may be. Whatever gives you confidence, right? So if you're going to do something that's going to change the way that you view yourself, or if it gives you more confidence, or if you feel better about yourself, like, I think it's a great idea. Because
why not?
If you like what you see in the mirror when you get up in the morning, it's going to change your entire outlook on everything. So it's a good thing.
It's so good. And yeah, I mean, men aren't really some men are doing, some of the med spa treatments, but not many.
Yeah.
For a minute, we were offering some of those services in our Pearl location. And, we're kind of thinking, oh, well, come in and get your hair cut, and then you can step over and get like some anti-aging treatments. But it's not really something men are thinking like, oh, I'm going to go ahead and like search this out. Maybe their wives might be like, oh, come see my Botox, injector. You've got some 11s on your forehead or something like that, and kind of pushing their guy that direction. But I think it's becoming more and more common. And maybe that's all it takes is for more men to kind of be more outright, honest about it with their friends. And then their friends like, oh, actually, I'm not less masculine because I'm going to go try to look good. And this aging thing is real, right? Like,
it's a real thing.
And we have things that we never had available to us before. And if men don't watch out, all these women they're with are going to be looking 20 years younger. They don't get on the bandwagon, right?
Yeah. No, it's true. No, I met, she's one of my best friends now. I met her back when I was 21 years old. Her name is Julia. She's originally from Costa Rica, and she owned her own, beauty location in Vancouver where, she would work with ladies on, makeup or permanent makeup. She would do facials, and I ran into her when I was younger, and she started giving me facials. And then when she sold the business, I've been going over to her house in Vancouver and still getting facials now for the last 25 years. And what I like about it is mostly I just like to spend time with her because she's wise and she's a sweetheart. But, the keeping your face clean and doing things that can help you look younger as time goes on. Like, she's continued to beat this into my head, but I enjoy the whole process. I feel better knowing that my face is clean and she's doing things that are going to help me. So maybe 20 years from now, I don't look completely 20 years older. You know what I'm saying? But I've learned to enjoy it. Most of the guys I explain to.
Oh my God, it's such a treat to have a facial.
It's the best.
You don't realize the massage and everything.
Yeah, the extractions
so relaxing.
Can be painful, but that's short-lived. But it's a wonderful experience. But most of the guys I talk to are like, well, why would you do that? And I'm like, well, your skin is your largest organ, so it's okay to take care of it. But I actually enjoy it, and I think more guys, as they maybe dip their foot into different experiences, they may learn to enjoy those type of things as well. Not just for the benefits of looking a certain way, but mostly because you can relax and relieve stress, right?
Right.
The other things that impact us as well.
Yeah, I think until you actually experience the facial, you don't realize how great it is.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, then the most important thing is whatever pathway you choose, you want to choose the path where you can just be confident and own it then.
That's right. And don't make decisions not to do something because you think it's going to make you look like you're too vain
Yeah.
or you're less masculine. Because I just think that doing whatever you can do, it's with what's in your means and what you can afford,
Yeah.
you're going to look back and be glad you did it, I think.
Yeah. I wonder why guys like, and maybe it's just the other generation, but the day and age of the comb over, like trying to,
Yeah.
why?
Yeah, you're not really fooling anybody, are you?
No. I don't know. Like my dad, he's kind of buzzed it down. I mean, he's not insecure about it whatsoever, but he hasn't had hair for a long time. But, for a while there, he would just manipulate how he combed it to cover up some of the bald. And I'm just like, he was cool with that. But I'm like, why don't you just buzz it down? And so when he did it, I think he likes it even better that way.
And, it's kind of easy for us to sit here and say this, both of us having full heads of hair.
Yes.
When going through that, I'm sure it's very traumatic.
Oh, I would be gripping. Like right now, if I was losing my hair and we were talking about this, like I would have great anxiety, right?
Yeah.
I've never had to deal with that, but yeah, it's awful.
Yeah, and another thing, that's happening is a lot of men are having the hormone therapy right now,
Mm-hmm.
which gives great results. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I'm not.
So there's a lot of naturopaths, I guess, that are doing it, other doctors as well. And, we all, as we age, our hormones start getting depleted in different ways. And so this hormone therapy generally includes testosterone. And excess testosterone is one of the reasons why men do lose hair. So with that, which is also why men who have excess testosterone generally have hairier bodies and backs. We talked last time about body hair.
Yeah.
So generally you'll see someone who has a hairy back also having less hair on their head. And that's from the excess testosterone. So by having the hormone therapy, what some men will find, and I have a friend like this who was enjoying completely the benefits of hormone therapy, better sex life, better body, his metabolism was higher, but then he was losing his hair. And he had a pretty good head of hair until I think he was maybe in his late 50s. And then he started doing the hormone therapy and started losing his hair.
Interesting.
So a lot of men don't really go into that realizing that might be the outcome. So it's like, but he wouldn't have traded it. The benefits of that were so great that he was very happy with that, even though he had less hair.
All right, Celeste Tripp, Harem is in studio. We'll come back and more as we continue to deal with real-life struggles that we all face. RipCityDrive, if you want to reach out, you can do so, 503-248-0620. And you can find me on social at Chad and Rip City. You got the Rip City Drive. All right, Celeste Tripp. Harem is in studio hanging out. What women want. And we're talking about hair loss today. I'm just glad that we live in a day and age now where there's better technology. So if I face some of these issues in the future, there are much better options than what they had in the past.
That's right. You can keep looking your awesome self, Chad, even if you don't have any hair.
Oh my goodness. Well, I mean, but my guess would be, and maybe you know this better because of the guys who come in, but how many guys are willing to open up and talk about, hair loss or what's troubling them? Will they talk about it with their stylist, talk about options, or do they not want to bring it up?
Well, it is definitely a sensitive subject. And I don't even know. Do your buddies start talking to you about their hair loss?
No.
I don't know who they talk to. But I have always heard that men often hear first about their hair loss from their hairstylist because they're like over their head. And then in the shampoo bowl, it becomes more obvious when they start losing it. But earlier prevention, the better. There are supplements people can take. We sell one called Nutrafol that's also sold by dermatologists that a lot of clients have success with. It's like a supplement they take, and within 3 months, they start seeing some more hair. But, if you're really losing hair, I don't think you're going to, even like Rogaine, a lot of people used to take Rogaine, you're not going to have a whole head of hair,
Now,
but you're going to have more hair.
If you still have hair, is there anything you can do to prevent the loss of hair, or is that just something that happens naturally based on who you are, your genetic makeup?
Yeah, there's multiple reasons why people lose hair. We were just talking about excess testosterone is a natural reason. Some men's bodies just naturally produce more testosterone, and some are getting supplements of therapy with testosterone. But another reason why men lose hair is they can have hair follicles clogged, and that happens with a lot of hair product, especially poor quality hair product. Has a lot of waxes and parabens in them that can clog your follicle. So your hair can't actually pop through it. So using quality shampoo, having a scalp exfoliation treatments, that can help keeping your hair follicles clean and clear.
I didn't even think about that. So some products can clog.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes. So, using, I know a lot of clients, they come in and out of their stylists and their barbershops. And they're like, I'll just use my wife's product, or I'll just get that crap from the store.
Yeah.
They don't use the word crap, but that's what it is. And, and then what they're doing is they're adding not only buildup on their hair from, because, anything's cheap. You get what you pay for, right?
Yes.
But it's not only adding that wax onto your hair strands, but it's also going into your follicle.
I hate to think how much I just paid for that big bottle of shampoo I got, but I'm the same way. I'm so afraid of a bad product that I'm willing to overspend to make sure that I'm putting good stuff on my dome.
Well, and if you just use a dime or so, like that will last you a long time.
Yeah.
It's a good investment. The best thing we always have clients who are like, oh, I'll just use my wife's product. I'm thinking, well, does your wife really want you to use her product, first of all?
Yeah.
Second of all, do you have the same hair style and type of hair as your wife? Probably not. Do you want to smell like your wife? Probably not.
Yes.
So probably good to invest in your own product. It all comes out of the same bank account likely anyway, and have a product that's good for your type of hair, but also one that's not going to potentially make it hard for your new hair growth to come through.
And I think most of us have buddies who like to wear hats on a regular basis. Does that impact hair, wearing a hat all the time?
I have never heard that.
Yeah,
because
I've heard that if you wear a hat all the time, it can cause you to lose hair or to have a receding hairline. That's one of those things I've always said. Is that real or is that a wives' tale?
Yeah,
That's
might be a wives' tale.
Yeah, because I hear that. I'm like, I'm not really buying that.
Yeah.
I don't wear hats, but I have friends that do just because they like to wear hats, right? So you don't have to worry about damage
and
from
it's
wearing a
good.
hat.
And that's another thing, too, with men with thinning hair is you really have to make sure you're using sunscreen. We used to sell a product, and we don't any longer.
What does the sun damage do?
Well, there's a thing called skin cancer, Chad.
Well, I know that, but I mean.
So, yeah. Well,
but is it tied into hair loss?
Hair protects your scalp.
Oh, I see what you're saying, yeah.
So if you're losing your hair and then you're out in the sun,
yeah,
you need to put sunscreen on.
Yes, and I know Dwight, who is bald, and then my dad, like, they've had to go in and have, those
basal
lesions
cells
removed. Yeah.
Yeah, I've had them taken off my face.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's real. So you got to use a sunscreen and, or wear the hat.
I'm afraid of what's coming in the near future because of the lack of my stupidity when I was younger, being out in the sun all the time, and I'm going to pay a price for it. I know.
like I said, I've had 3 times my nose and my cheek here. So
Yeah.
anyone who's out there not using sunscreen, and
Use
I
the
know men
sunscreen.
are terrible. I mean, women, especially over 30, we're like all about sunscreen. But I know so many guys are like, oh no, I'm fine.
No.
And just because you're not burning doesn't mean you're not getting the sun damage.
I
So.
know. And the good thing is now is that usually what will happen now in the morning before we tee off is that someone or more than one will pull out the sunscreen and like, all right, and they just pass it around so they can,
Well-
the guys can get the, the sun treatment on to protect themselves.
Well, in the last segment, you're talking about facials, sunscreen. Just bringing that up about your skin. If you're using sunscreen that's meant for your body,
Yes.
don't put that on your face.
Yeah.
It's way too heavy and greasy, and it's going to clog your pores. They're going to get you really good when
I
they're
don't
cleaning
need
out your
that.
pores in your next facial. So, get the stuff meant for the face.
All right. Celeste Tripp is in studio. All right. We have social up now. You created social
so
for
we
us.
have some clips from our previous segments. We'll be adding on there. On Instagram, it's Here's What Women Want.
Here's what women want on
That's
Instagram,
right.
and she'll be. She's got clips up right now, and you're going to be in next week on Thursday.
Next Thursday,
All
I'll be
right.
here. And
All
then
right.
if anyone wants to put some things on social and like things like that us to talk about, love to hear it.
That's what we're here for. Celeste Tripp is in studio. Thank you for your time, my friend.
Thanks, Chad.
All right, next Thursday she'll be back in. Have a good night, my friends. Tomorrow, 2:30 game day with Chris Burkhardt. Tip off with the Blazers and Raptors at 4:30 here on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio.